welcome to my channel. I'm Rebecca. I'm an animal communicator and spiritual medium. I'm talking today about past lives with our animal companions and past lives of the animal kingdom in general. I at the very start of my spiritual journey, when I was a lot younger, I couldn't really get on board with the whole reincarnation thing, and I think that's because I had always thought that you come here to learn everything. Once you've learned everything, then you go back to the spirit world and you get to enjoy a rest. I naively thought that you would, as you sometimes think, you'll be resting, enjoying your time up there, and after working hard all your life. But as my journey kind of evolved, and I would say that probably more so working with the animal kingdom, I have learned so much about past lives and reincarnation, and it actually has really helped me to understand a lot of the challenges that both humans and animals face right now upon the earth. Every interaction I have with my clients, whether they're people or animals, is incredibly different. And some of the past lives that I have witnessed, not only about my own past lives, but past lives that animals and other people have experienced, have just really blown me away. And something that I know quite often is talked about. People will often, they have this idea that reincarnation, you were perhaps, somebody super famous or somebody very wealthy, or a big emperor or something like that, and that's not always the case. We obviously there are people and animals that have had those incarnations, but also there are people that have just been people, or people that have been animals, and animals that have been people. And that is something that I found really interesting, because I had never considered early on in my journey, once I began understanding about reincarnation, I never really considered that animals previously were people, or that people had previously been animals, but we have literally been everything and anything throughout different lifetimes. And I just find it so fascinating. I think it's probably one of the things that I will never ever not be amazed at when I carry out my sessions. There's always something new to learn, and just seeing a different perspective as well, helping you to understand that some of the challenges that our animal companions, or indeed ourselves, are facing right now, we may not always be aware of where those feelings come from, but quite often they are linked into our past lives. So it's really beneficial when I have a session to be able to see those things and to have a deeper understanding, because there is so much that makes up our animal companions and us, and it just really helps to get a really big picture of who we are and where we've been, where we've come from. And so today I want to talk about past lives with animals. I might dive into a past lives with people over on my other channel, but right now I feel like it's the animal kingdom that really needs a spotlight shining on their past lives and how it affects them in their day-to-day lives. So with our animal companions, I'm now talking more about our domestic animals that we share a home with. They may have things. You might find that you have an animal that's come into your life, and perhaps, say for instance, you had I use dogs and cats because they seem to be quite they're quite common. Quite a lot of people have those, so it's easier to reference. So with dogs and cats, say that you bought a puppy or a kitten into your life, and so you've known them effectively from the very beginning of their life here upon the earth. It's not like having a rescue animal where you may have had they've perhaps had time on the earth with another family or a different situation before they came into your life. These are brand new to the earth right now, and so we would kind of think that they're brand new. We are helping them to navigate their environment. We're teaching them. They're learning and growing with us. They're integrating into our lives as we're integrating into theirs. And sometimes you will find that they will be really scared of something or someone. Or it may even be that they are showing signs of fear and you don't actually know, like, to your human eyes, you can't actually see what they are afraid of. That can be something that they've brought through from a past life. So it can be perhaps if they are, say they have a fear of particularly men or particularly women, they're fine with the opposite sex, but they have a fear around certain people. And you know these people to be really lovely, kind people that absolutely love your animal companion. But for some reason, they are very skittish around them, very uncomfortable. It could be a memory within them that is associating with a past life. This is a separate thing from picking up on the energy of people, which animals are incredibly good at. So you may think that somebody is really nice, but your energy never lies. So your animal companion might be pick up on their energy at a deeper level. This is different to that. This is a memory locked within them, a bit like when we have fears. And I've spoken about fears before, where fears come from. They come from a variety of places. And sometimes they can be linked into past life experiences. And with our animal companions, obviously it's a lot more complex because we have so much that we're trying to learn. So when we're talking to them, we're not able to easily have a one-on-one conversation like you would with a person. You know, if a person could say to you, I don't know what it is, but I just feel really uncomfortable whenever I go here, or whenever I'm around this person, something makes me feel really uncomfortable and I don't know why. They aren't able to actually physically say that to you. So they will show you with their body language. They may take themselves to a different room. And this is why when I spoke in my previous video about animals having their own safe, quiet space, so that they can do that, so that if they're feeling uncomfortable and you're perhaps not aware, they can remove themselves so they have an opportunity to leave a situation. Past lives can be really complex with animals, and something that I hadn't really factored in is, and it makes perfect sense, I don't know why I didn't factor it in, because thinking about our own human experience, you may have even said it yourself. I know I've said it before with, in conversations with friends or with family, and I've said being human is really difficult. Understanding other people, just navigating life in general, some of the challenges that come up. And sometimes we find it hard to be human. And something that I hadn't banked on is that animals sometimes find it really hard to be animals. And it was almost like as soon as it kind of clicked, I was like, well, of course, why wouldn't they? But with animals, they're having a challenge if in particular they have been a human in a past life. Now, while they would have chosen to reincarnate this time around as an animal, doesn't mean it's going to be super easy, because it's a brand new experience to them. They've never experienced perhaps being an animal before, so they've come to Earth. And even though when we come, we largely forget a lot of things, once we start doing this work to kind of get back to ourselves, know ourselves at a deeper level, and especially if we are on the spiritual path, we become more attuned. We start understanding the different fragments of ourselves, and we can understand our different lifetimes. And that helps us, on this navigating this journey that we're currently experiencing. And with animals, when they've come here and they've previously been human, not only are they kind of having to remember and navigating life, but they're in a completely different body. It's not like coming back again as another human. Yes, it's going to be completely different, and yes, you will largely have forgotten, everything previously, unless you start doing that work to tap into it. They are literally in a completely different body that works differently, that feels different, that experiences different things, because remember, animals have different emotional maturity levels, and They don't, they don't experience emotions in the same way that we do. They process things quite differently as well. So it's not just, oh, I've come back to Earth. It's I've come back to Earth and I'm in this brand new outfit, as it were. It's a bit like when you get a new car. Or you go to stay somewhere new when you go on holiday. It takes you a while to kind of get your bearings and to figure it out and navigate. Oh, this is how this works. This feels different to how my old car felt, or things in this property are kept in a different place to where I would assume they would be. It's that whole thing. So they're navigating such a lot. It's not just new life. It's the body might feel strange. Understanding how to interact with other animals, and also understanding how to interact with humans if they have been human before. And I've come across this in my animal companion sessions. Animals that have been incredibly frustrated, they are trying to communicate, and animals in general are always trying to show us. They want to share their wisdom and their love. They have so much to teach us. So they will always be trying to give us signs and signals, largely with their body language, because that is how they communicate in the world, with other animals. But I have had animal companions, domestic animals, excuse me, that are finding it frustrating because they are trying really hard to communicate with the humans that they live with, and the humans simply aren't getting it. And sometimes that's because we need to bridge that gap. And this is why I feel like the work I do is so vital, being a voice for the animal kingdom, because it is bridging that gap of communication. As I've said before, it's almost like being a translator, so the animals can more easily, through me, speak and say, this is what I'm trying to tell you. And then the humans can say, oh, I didn't realize that. And they can have this conversation. So there's such a lot when animals incarnate upon the earth. There is such a lot for them to contend with. And I haven't really spoken too much with wild animals. I've spoken with a few wild animals about past lives. One beautiful experience I will be sharing with you today, because it was vital to my learning and growth on my own journey. But animal companions, very often in the sessions that I do with them, will show me their past lives. And it's beautiful to see when the kind of the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle fit together for them, understanding, oh, okay, this happened in a past life. Oh, I see how that translates to now. But also to enable their human companions to put the pieces together and like, oh, that's why this is happening. I didn't realize. And then working out a way to make the experience of living together flow a bit better, to be more understanding. And that's beautiful, because you can see such huge changes both on a spiritual and emotional level for these animals once they are feeling seen and heard. So yeah, past lives with them are so beautiful and so interesting to me, because there's such a variety. Some of them have been animals previously, some of them have been people, some of them have experienced really difficult things as people, and they came back as an animal in order to teach other humans about, for example, if you've had a person that was treated really badly in a past life by other humans, they've now come back as an animal to try to teach humans about love. That's a really big one. I mean, animals are always, they're filled with so much love anyway. They vibrate on a much higher level than humans, but they will come back in that form to teach people about love. And also you will have people that have really loved animals. This is another thing that I find really beautiful. So you'll have people that have loved animals. I've spoken before about the spirit guides that our animals have. And sometimes they are people that were upon the earth that either worked with animals or just had an absolute love for animals. And perhaps maybe they weren't able to work with animals or have their own companions during that lifetime. and they've then gone on to work in the animal kingdom in the spirit world, or to choose to be spirit guides to animals upon the earth. But you also have people like that who love animals, who've been fascinated by them, who choose to reincarnate as animals, and they want to experience all of it. So they've loved them from a human perspective, perhaps, from afar, but now they're coming back as those animals so that they can grow and they can understand even more from the animal's point of view. And I think that is just beautiful. It kind of, I don't know, I'll say a lot, it surprises me, it amazes me, but genuinely, every single time I do this work, every single session is different. Every animal I interact with is different. You could get 2 cats, 2 dogs, 2 horses, they're completely different. None of them are the same. And it's just like how we are. We are all, we have shared things, but we are seeing this experience is very unique and very individual. Nobody is experiencing their life in the same way as we are. Even if you're living with somebody and you're doing the same things together, or if you have a great friend at work and you're in the same role at work, you're still not experiencing life in the same way. And it's important for us to remember that animals are like that. Even when we see pack animals, prides of lions or a pack of wolves, none of them are experiencing life in the same way. They're all experiencing it differently. Many of them, some of them will be brand new spirits to the earth that have come here to incarnate for the very first time, but quite a few of them will have reincarnated as a choice to have a different experience of life this time around. So animals have past lives. I know a lot of people will often say to me, what about animals and past lives? They do have past lives. It can be really beneficial during a session to, quite often I've found animals will come forward and talk about those and show me their past lives. We'll literally walk through their past lives and I'll get to experience what they experienced without being asked. They like to share it because it's a part of their healing journey. But it is very beneficial to understand that side of things, especially if you have animals in your life that are perhaps fearful, or maybe they are, I don't like to use the word aggressive because animals aren't aggressive. That behavior comes from a deeper fear or from feeling threatened. If you have an animal companion that is experiencing something, that you can't put your finger on, and you know that they're in good health, I would always say, the first port of call should be a trained professional to check that they aren't experiencing pain, that they are in good health. But if it's something beyond that you can't put your finger on and you're thinking, but they have a safe space to be at home, they seem really happy at home, they're happy with the humans that they live with, there's something else and you can't figure out what it is, I would say that, sessions like the ones that I do are so beneficial because you get that extra layer of understanding, whether there is an element of a past life that is affecting their now. And sometimes for them, it's unlocking that memory too. Sometimes they won't necessarily, like we wouldn't, be aware of it, in your everyday life. There's not something that you see or that you feel uncomfortable about, and immediately you're thinking, oh yeah, that was my past life 200 years ago, or yeah, I remember that. You're not thinking on that level because you're in the now. So sometimes that's the same with your animals. Having those moments where they get to kind of unlock that memory of a past life is hugely beneficial because it starts that healing process. It gives them the understanding of, oh yes, they're tapping into that memory on a spiritual, energetic level, and it's helping them to process and recalibrate as they move forward on their healing and growth journey too. So that's really, just kind of an oversight of what past lives are for our animal companions, and just to confirm that yes, they do have past lives. I want to share with you something that it just blew me away, and it was the first time with a wild animal that I had understood about past lives. As I said, I've had that a lot of times in my sessions with clients, but I hadn't had it with a wild animal, and it was so interesting to me. But also, it made me quite sad, quite emotional, because I until that point, I hadn't really understood what I was saying earlier about, sometimes navigating the animal experience is very difficult for them. I hadn't really thought about that because obviously we all choose how we incarnate, but then thinking back to on a human level that, of course, sometimes we find it hard being human. Why wouldn't animals find it tough being an animal? So the story I'm going to share with you is a personal story. It's about a pigeon that I've known now for several years. I've known probably for about 4 years, coming up to 5 years, I think. I've known them for quite a long time. And as I've said before in other videos, I have a real affinity with all of the birds that come to my garden. I know them, I know their behaviours, I know the times of day they like to feed, I know who they like to hang out with and to feed with. So I know them all. Like I know them both on a human to animal level of interacting with them in my day-to-day life, but I also know them on an energy level. And this one pigeon, when I first encountered this pigeon, I noticed that it would always be sat on its own. It didn't have a mate. It was always on its own. And it would come down and it would sit on the fence. And these are wood pigeons. I live in the country. They're really beautiful wood pigeons. It would sit on the fence, and if there were other pigeons, it would go over to them and it would try to kind of make friends with them. And these pigeons would always kind of either peck it or shoo it away. And the pigeon would fly off and it would land on the roof and it would sit on its own again. And I watched it for quite some time, over several weeks, and it was always this same pattern of it would come down, it would try to be friends with the pigeons, and the pigeons would shoo it away. And I started to feel really sad because I was like, this is like, it's almost like a bullying energy, like children at school when children want to be involved in a friendship group and they're like, you can't play with us. It was just this really very sad energy. And then I started noticing that this pigeon would wait until later on in the day when all of the other birds had finished feeding and they would go off. This pigeon would come down. And so I started putting out extra food because it was coming down and most of the food would be gone and it would be pecking around just for the scraps that had been left. So I would wait until later in the day and I'd put down a little bit of extra food so it could come down and feed in peace. And it felt that it could, rest and wasn't being pecked at by the other pigeons. And so I would tell it, I would say to it, oh, you're beautiful, you're welcome in my garden, and just really trying to understand like what was going on with this pigeon. And I would see it also try to perhaps get a mate, and it just never worked. And it was really sad. And so I kind of, just thought, oh, well, I hope that, if it is meant that it does in this lifetime, it does meet a mate and it can go on and be happy, that would be really nice. But it really bothered me because this poor pigeon was obviously trying to integrate with its own kind and it just wasn't happening. And I was thinking, this is really sad. And I've got my journal here. I journal a lot of my conversations with the animals just so that I don't forget, especially with the wild animals. So this was in May of last year. Oh yeah, so before that, so in the summer of 2023, I was kind of having this whole putting the food out and saying to it, you're welcome in my garden. And it said to me, why does no one want to be my friend? Will you be my friend? And it made me so sad. It made me really, really sad because I'd been watching this for weeks, that this poor pigeon was trying to make friends and it couldn't make friends. And so I had said to it, of course I'll be your friend. And from that point on, we'd talked ever since. We'd had the, the energetic conversations. And these two doves would befriend the pigeon. They would come and they would allow it to feed with them at the feeder. And they would spend time in the afternoon. And I noticed that the doves started coming down later in the day in order to be with the pigeon. And they would kind of sit, they would do a little bow to each other, they would acknowledge each other. And I suddenly felt the pigeon kind of relax, and it was like, oh, I've got some friends, I feel like I belong. And I would see that, in the sunshine, the three of them would sit up on the roof enjoying the sun together. And it made me feel so much better because I kind of could see that it had, it was surprising, a little bit surprising that it hadn't formed a relationship with another pigeon, but it had made friends with these doves. And the beautiful thing was the doves had seen and been aware of the fact that this pigeon needed company, that it was feeling lonely and it was struggling. And I thought that was really lovely. It's like, when you see children in the playground will go up to the child that's sitting without any friends. They have this knowing, they can feel and sense when that energy connection needs to be made. And so that was the first thing that surprised me, because I was thinking, oh, the doves have made friends with it. So it kind of wasn't invited into the pigeon group, but the doves invited it. And the doves have a very lovely, gentle energy anyway. And I could feel that the wood pigeons are very gentle, but they can be, they're a bit quicker. I don't really know how to explain their energy. Doves have a very gentle, like soft flowing energy, whereas pigeons can be sometimes a little bit here, there and everywhere. And I could feel with this pigeon that it kind of had the energy was more aligned with the doves. It has a more kind of a go slow, gentle energy. And so this, going back to my notes on in May of last year, the three of them had been eating together. And the pigeon, when the doves left, the pigeon said to me, "I just don't know how to be a bird." And that was, like I said earlier, that was a moment that floored me, because I was thinking, but you chose to come back as a bird. I hadn't even considered that animals would struggle. And that really was the key to kind of opening up just a whole load of understanding about animals navigating that animal experience, especially when they haven't previously been animals. And it really helped me in the work that I do with my animal clients, just to get a better understanding of the things that they're experiencing and the challenges that they sometimes face, and to be able to relay that to their human companions. It has been so beneficial. So I'm so grateful to the pigeon for this experience, because obviously we're for building a friendship together, but also I'm learning so much in the process, and it's giving comfort to the pigeon to be seen and understood. So again, it's beautiful how you can see that everything is connected. And so I'd said to the pigeon, "What do you mean?" And I've spoken before about the way in which I receive messages and understanding from spirit. And one of the ways is that I will be shown what I call like movie clips. They're like film strips. So it's literally like being immersed in the world that they're showing you, and it's kind of playing out and you're an observer to it. And what this pigeon showed me was it had had a past life as a beautiful Chinese woman. And she had this absolutely, I can still remember this absolutely stunning, long flowing black hair. And it was so shiny. It was just beautiful. The kind of hair that you would absolutely love to have. It was stunning. And she was wearing this long silk, white flowing, long sleeve dress, and standing in this enormous room. It had huge high ceilings, pillars, archways, and it was just this lovely, the walls were like this soft cinnamon colour with all these like cream and gold accents on everything. And she was standing at the back of this really tall chair, and I'm not very good with furniture. I don't know the different types of chairs, but it was a really big high back chair, and it had all these lovely kind of flowers all over it, and the edging of the chair was all made of gold. It was a very very lush and expensive feeling place, like like being in a palace. That's how I can describe it. It was really amazing and beautiful. And I had initially thought, and this is where doing this work, you have to be really mindful of letting your own kind of human self creep in. You have to separate the two when you're doing the work. And I could feel myself thinking, oh, but her outfit looks a little bit Japanese. And it was like, the minute I thought it, she said, "No, I am Chinese." She was Chinese nobility. And it was so beautiful. It really, I always think I really wish I was really good at art, because I would have loved to have painted what she was showing me. And she had said that even though she had this really regal life, she was very wealthy in this lifetime and didn't want for anything, had absolutely everything she could have desired. But she, despite having all of this material wealth, she felt incredibly trapped. And I'd said to her, you know, it's beautiful where you live, but she'd felt like a prisoner. And she just felt very flat. Like, you'd think, like, you've got this amazing, like, palatial home, you're clearly very wealthy, you want for nothing. But there was this dull feeling of like she wasn't fulfilled, and she felt trapped and felt like a prisoner in this life. And so she had always said, in her, while she was alive in that incarnation, she'd always said, I want to be free and I want to travel. I'm going to come back as a bird. When I die, I'm reincarnating as a bird. And so that is what she did. So when she passed to spirit, she chose to reincarnate and came back as this pigeon, thinking, you know, she was going to be free. She could travel anywhere she wanted. She would be able to fly. She wouldn't have all of this. But what she was realizing was, yes, she'd gained that freedom in one sense, but she was still feeling that flat, lonely feeling because she had no idea how to be a bird. The energy was still connected into that old life where she hadn't kind of understood why she'd felt that way. And perhaps, like I've previously said in other videos about sending love to your home. I've said that over on my other channel, Spirit Journey of Enlightenment, where I talk more about the human experience. In a recent video, I'd said about, you know, it's very easy when we're in a place that we perhaps don't want to be, to say, you know, oh, I hate this house is horrible. That's all kind of energy that you're putting into your home. And she had not healed that side of her. She'd been like, I hate this, I feel trapped, this life is awful, I feel like a prisoner, rather than also looking at the parts of her life that were really good and seeing them, you know, seeing a wider perspective about everything. She had been so focused on how she felt trapped and she hated it. She hadn't really lived her life. She was just going through the motions, which is quite sad. And she'd brought that energy through into this incarnation as the pigeon, and was really struggling to navigate being a pigeon because she had this energy connection of the loneliness. And it was almost like she's pulled that through with her. And so she's still lonely. She's lonely here, but she doesn't need to be. And it just blew me away to be able to tie all of those things together, to tie through, you know, how she had felt in this previous life, but yet this previous life was so full of wealth. And to now, there's still a feeling of isolation, but that was based on, because she hadn't really thought about coming back as a bird. Yes, she got her freedom, but she hadn't thought about, you know, all the other kind of lessons and challenges that go along with this incarnation. And so she was having a hard time navigating. But what I was shown was that this new friendship that she had made with the doves was really going to help her. That lovely, loving, supportive energy from them, allowing her to sit with them and to just be, would give her that space she needed, rather than trying so hard to be accepted, to fit in and to feel less lonely. It would give her the space that she needed just to relax into being, to start to feel herself of, this is how it feels to be in this body, and to start healing herself, helping herself on her journey. And I will say that even from last summer to now, she still spends a lot of time on her own and a lot of time with the doves. She still doesn't have a mate, but I've asked her about that. And for right now, she's actually quite happy. Because she's aware now that she is working on her own healing and growth. So she's quite happy in that respect, but she's still navigating things. But each time I speak to her, I can feel her energy has softened. It's almost like she's relaxing into this incarnation and who she is, and she's starting to understand, and she's absolutely beautiful. She really is so beautiful. And she still will come down sometimes on her own, but she'll come down now. She comes down with the blackbird and robin, and occasionally there'll be one other pigeon, which is quite new. It's quite new to the area. That will come down, and she'll be there. And it's funny because sometimes that pigeon will do its little bowing and its little, trying like they do when they're trying to find a mate, and she's having none of it. So it's quite funny to witness that as well, because it's almost like something's clicked for her, and she's now on this healing journey herself. But she's like, no, not yet. I'm not ready. That's not where I'm right now. So it's actually beautiful to watch, because even though the animal kingdom is very different, I often say they do have a lot of similarities. They are trying to teach us things as we can learn from them, and they learn from us. They're always observing us. And it was just so transformative for me to understand that this was an animal that was actually struggling in an animal incarnation. And I hadn't previously I don't know why I hadn't thought about it, because I've always thought about that with people. What if they were animals previously? And it just hadn't clicked the same way around, which was really bizarre when I thought about it. So it really helped me to understand. And it's beautiful. It's really beautiful to be a part of her journey and to watch how she is kind of learning and growing. And it's really lovely to witness, especially with the doves, the emotional and spiritual support that they are gifting her to help her to grow. And something really sweet that happened last summer was she was on the patio feeding with the doves, and this tiny baby robin appeared, and there was this moment where she was really surprised, and she was like, "Oh, hello, you're brand new." And the robin was like, "Yes, I am. Hello." And it was so sweet, because it was almost like she felt this joy of like, "Oh, there's somebody new, but you're brand new to the earth, like you're a baby." And the robin was all excited of like, "Yes, I'm brand new." And it's, I've said before, when animals come to the world, they're so excited. It's the same with humans. When we're born, we're so excited to be here. What is this new place? What is this life going to bring us? Our spirits are so excited to be here. And it was just really lovely to witness that. So it's an ongoing journey. It's an ongoing journey of healing and growth for my pigeon friend, just as it is with our own animal companions, just as it is with us. But I would say, just to be, to be aware that sometimes we don't always see the things that are, and I don't want to say a problem, because they're not a problem, they're just learning experiences. But the things with our animal companions that may not always be apparent on the surface could be much, much deeper, and could be linked into them navigating their past life experiences and part of their healing process on this journey. So I'll leave it there with you today. I think that I might actually I'm going to do some more work, and I think that if the animal kingdom is willing, particularly in the wild animal kingdom, I'll do some more work on past lives with them, and I'll start to keep a journal specifically for past life experiences, because I think that not only is it really helpful for them to be heard and understood, I also think that their experiences will greatly benefit humans in navigating our own experiences. So do let me know. I'd love to hear from you in the comments if you had even considered that animals might have past lives. If you notice sometimes you'll notice traits with animals. Some people will say, "Oh, my animal does this," and it's like a really human thing. Sometimes they're traits that have come through from past life incarnations as well. So I'd be interested to know your thoughts on past lives and your own animal companions, and if this has given you a little bit more understanding. If you do like my work, please like, share and subscribe, as it really helps me to reach more people and to help them help their animal companions with their understanding. And if you are interested in navigating more of your own human experience, please follow my other channel on YouTube, which is Spirit Journey of Enlightenment. If you'd like to book a session with me for yourself or for your animal companions, I offer remote sessions worldwide. All of my information about how my sessions work can be found on my website, and those links are in my channel. Thank you again for listening, and I will speak to you again in another video. Take care.